There is also a view I find that infuses most philosophical and spiritual traditions, and that is that somehow the body to be embodied itself is suffering. I've heard people say to me, well, to be born itself is a suffering. I must say this makes me really sad. As someone who offers a tradition, a creative, celebratory, ritual, archetypal tradition that is body-led, that is embodied, that is speaking about an intelligence and consciousness that is a gift of the body, the proposition that body is the villain and that this gift of an embodied birth, an embodied manifestation, is the suffering, I simply don't find that meaningful or helpful or even actually true as a dancer. I do understand, though, why we would consider the body as problematic. Because the body is transient, it holds death, there is an ending. The body also brings us to what I call the primordiality, which is those drives in us. And I'm not just talking about the emotions which we have narrated psychologically, but I'm speaking about the deeper drives. I call them the loin longings, loin, or as in yoni, which means that loin primordiality, our desires, our yearning, our impulses, our ferocity, those kind of impulses and sensations that simply don't rise up to the mind and to the mind's control. So the body is the source of that and the domain of that. And that is terrifying. So death is terrifying. These kind of sensations, these kind of elemental sensations where the mystery is right within our own bodies and it's not something out there, that is terrifying. And of course, we become old, the body, to our way of living, we think that is a decline, we think it makes us vulnerable because all our structures of life are based on this able-bodied youth, and therefore we have no space or accommodation for a body that changes and transforms, so we consider that a decline, and it hasn't always been so. There are cultures even today and that would consider that aging of the body in a very different way, as a way of space of wisdom and a very different kind of intelligence. But in general, we don't really hold that space anymore. In the mainstream, we don't have that space anymore. So for all these reasons, the body terrifies us and makes us feel that we don't have a control about the body, that it takes us into what we consider the wildness, into our mortality. And so the body is the villain because it brings us suffering. We don't like transience. We don't like not being able to control things. We don't like not being able to predict things because the body is unpredictable. Our sensations are unpredictable. So for all these reasons, I can understand why we would think that the body is the cause of our suffering. So many philosophies and spiritual traditions would propose that if we transcend the body, if we can detach ourselves from those elemental impulses of the body, like desire, for example, by practicing detachment or non-attachment, or by any practice that transcends the body, that locates immortality as an opposition to the mortality of the body, and therefore the more we can detach ourselves from the body, the more we will be able to decrease our suffering. And I think that to a large extent, this infuses most of the paradigms by which we live today, this disconnection or denial of the body. And what I sense is that this brings a brutality. This disconnection with the body is also a disconnection with the earth, with the primordiality of ourselves, which is the connection to the primordiality of earth, of soil, of consciousness that is immanent, that sentience that is immanent in all matter and not just as an exclusive domain of certain life forms. when we accept all this, it is a radical shift about how we position ourselves, participating within reality, within earth, within nature, led by the body. Now, this is a very radical proposition. But what we do instead is that we have these technocratic paradigms which propose connections between us and nature, between the mind and the body. And I feel that they really don't bring us to that radical invitation of being within, being led by nature, by our primordiality and by the body. So that's where I feel that we continue with this hierarchical brutality where we instrumentalize everything. We instrumentalize body, we instrumentalize other life forms to our own self-interest. So body as the villain in the suffering, and the rejection or denial or deletion of body as an essential part of our human experience, in my view, is not only just a tragic thing for creativity and imagination and expression, but also for us to live a more harmonious and connected existence. I don't feel that this body denial has decreased our suffering. I think if anything, it has only increased our suffering.